Lock plant. Plant shouldn't be a big deal. No. Financial interest. Mark wanted to talk to you about it. So he's got no problem. He didn't mention it, but I figured I'd say it. Cattlemen's, but he's got nothing to do with it. Bello was wondering about, notice. Financial gain. He is a creditor on an industrial.
He just started talking to me.
If it's restricted, I didn't get a chance.
These should go fairly easy. They're a bunch of variances. One PUD.
I didn't see anything on there that caused me heartburn.
Yeah, exactly. A bunch of variances. There's a PUD in there. Yes. So I skimmed through it.
All right, all right.
Well, you go through the form, you'll get us out of
All
here
right.
by
All right.
6:30.
That'll
It's
work.
not me stopping. It's that guy over there.
Good.
You've been pushing it along. I'm not complaining a bit.
No, no.
That
should
guy
be-
over
should
there
be good.
takes each and every one of those things and stretches them.
Just get the business done.
Put that on the record.
He does, he stretches them.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember that recommendation for that 140 unit residential and 100 that we did? They threw it. For 100.
Finished out the last one. I'm like that. Yeah, thank you.
Mark was to expand the industrial base.
He tried to pretty it up or something.
I was gonna say, I could use all the help I can get. Little cat ears.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Flagler County Planning and Development Board meeting. Today's date, June 13th, 2023. Time is 6 p.m. Roll call, please, Gina.
Michael Boyd,
Here.
Timothy Connor. Jack Corbett advised us he would not be here, as did Heather Haywood. Mark Langella
Present.
and Anthony Lombardo
Here.
and Fernando Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Can we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The following item number 3, is the approval of May 9th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Do I have, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. The next item, so tonight's process is a quasi-judicial process. The audience should refrain from clapping, booing, or shouts of approval or disagreement to avoid potential legal ramifications and possible overturning of a decision by the courts. A public hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. Time limits will be observed. Staff, they'll have a 10 minutes presentation. Applicants, 15 minutes presentations unless otherwise or extended by the consensus of the board. Public comments, 3 minutes per speaker. 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group, and applicants' rebuttal and closing staff comments, 10 minutes each. Our 4th item is a quasi-judicial requiring disclosure of ex parte. Does anybody have a disclosure to make? Having none, we're going to go to application 3357, a variance, 5-foot street side yard setback variance from the required 20-foot minimum street side yard setback in the MH1 Rural Mobile Home District. Adam, can you please take us through that?
Yes, sir. We've got the subject property shown within your packet and also on the display that's here. Let me see if I can use the, it did come up. This is the accessory structure that's been built. It was originally proposed to go on this west side. You'll see in the drawings it shows there with some 57 feet, I think, setback from Pine Street. And then here's the location where it was actually constructed, and that ends up being 15 feet off of Pecan Avenue. So here's our future land use, showing the residential low-density rural estate designation consistent with most of all of Daytona North. The Rural Mobile Home District for the zoning, also conforming to Daytona North. Zone X for our flood zone, not part of a special flood hazard area. And our soil types are both fine sands, so no issues with the sand, with the soil type there. And as we would expect with the soil type, no wetlands shown on this property. And here's the view of the plat view on this. And so this being lot 12, and you can see the dimensions there, 300 feet along Pecan Avenue and then 135 feet on Pine. And I mentioned this here and also mentioned it in the staff report that it is a little unique with, remember, we're to look for unique circumstances. Our requirements now require that corner lots are wider than the other lots within the development. In this one, all 4 of the corners in this block and others like it are actually narrower. And so it decreases some 18% less than its neighboring lots. And so I wanted to kind of give that beginning of unique circumstances that are present. I also went through the lot of record setbacks and had those in your packet, 25 feet on the front, 20 on the rear, 15, and then 7.5, and then your street side drops from 25 to 20. And so that's the distinction there between the MH1 district and the lot of record setbacks. This is that plan that was originally submitted and that had the approval for the accessory building and showing it on Pine Street, showing it drawn in. It was done in two parts. It was first a slab permit and then with the contractor, and then with the metal building permit, then to go vertical with the construction. And then here's the detail on from the metal building permit that shows the doors, the orientation of the structure, and gives you the dimensions of the structure. Again, this is showing the elevation on those. I had those also within your packet, but just to give you some idea of the exterior construction. And then here's that as-built, and that shows the new metal shed, the 20 by 25 foot dimensions, 15 feet off of Pecan. And then I think when I did the math, it was some 7 or 8 feet off of the home itself, measuring then 100 feet from that north lot line southerly to that 20-foot dimension. That gives us our 135 in total. Well, I guess I'd include another one of the layout. Dimensions then, as I mentioned, 40,500 square feet is what those dimensions yield as far as the size of this, just under the acre, so it does make it a lot of record. Residential low-density rural estate being the future land use MH1 zoning in place, both of those then having that acre minimum. Proposed detached accessory use for a shed, and you saw the applicant's, Mr. Sadler's narrative of why he wanted to have that present on the property. We have those non-conforming lot of record setbacks, slab followed by the metal building, mentioned the 59 foot and then 15 foot off of Pecan. And this is an after-the-fact variance. This was discovered after the as-built was submitted to us. With that, I've presented the options available to you along with the staff report, and I do have, if you choose to approve this, you would be approving a 5-foot street side south yard setback variance from the minimum 20-foot street side yard setback in the MH1 zoning district for 5118 Pecan Avenue. Denial would be a denial of that 5-foot street side setback request. Continuance would be for some purpose that would either be from the applicant or from staff to come back with more information for the board. With that, I'll close. Wait any questions or comments and submit my report for the record. Mr. Sadler's here also, I think, for any questions or presentations you may have. So,
Okay, thank you, Adam. Before we take it to the applicant, do we have anybody on the board that has any questions for staff? Or would the applicant like to come up and present?
First of all,
Can you state your name and your address?
the microphone's to your right.
That one, yeah. Just state your name and where you're from.
Coy Sadler, 5118 Pecan Avenue in Bunnell, Florida. First of all, the drawing that you saw was the guy, when he drew it up and helped me draw it up, the Silas guy, that was not supposed to be Pine Street. That was supposed to be Pecan. He wrote Pine in there, not Pecan. I didn't write that in there at all. So I just noticed that when I saw it right there, that was supposed to be Pecan Avenue. There was no way I could put that in front of my house because I could not get my cars or anything else in that. And that building was built especially for my cars and my son, who was in the military, his stuff also. And he passed away in career last year. So if you live out there where we live at, you'll know the dirt roads are really dusty and dirty, and if you don't have anything to put anything away, everything turns to dust and dirt. So the main reason we built that wasn't for beauty or anything like that. It was just for storing his stuff and our cars to stay nice and clean and neat. Because when it rains out there, it's a swamp, basically the way to put it to you. I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I did notice that when I saw that was never supposed to be Pine Street. It was always supposed to be Pecan. And when I measured from the center of the street, and anyone who goes out there and measures to my building, there's 68 feet from what is the center of the street now. But when they come through and grade, they grade all over the place, so you don't really know where the center of the street's at. And when I did it and I got the final and everything for the building and the final for the concrete, I didn't know anything about getting a site survey. I'm sorry, that was my fault. I didn't know it until I came back and talked to permitting, and they told me I needed it. So at that time, the building was already up, and I didn't know that it needed more room or whatever. But I assumed since the building was behind my fence, it was in plenty of room, that it needed to be in my driveway. And then as far as it being close to my house, when I measure from my house to the building, there is 14 feet in between my building and that house. That's basically what I have. I'm not an architect where I know any of these things that you guys do with the road and all, but they told me they were metal spikes in the road that determine where the line is at, and I never knew that. I just thought the road was where it was the road was. Basically all I have for you guys.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? You do? Go ahead, Mr. Langella.
Hello, Mr. Coy. You intended the building to be where it is, not on the other side?
Yes,
is that where it
sir.
was?
The entire time. Never intended that building to go anywhere else.
Okay.
I moved a shed that was already there. I had it taken down and torn apart so that the new shed could go there and house it. There was a 10 by 16 little building there that housed farm, equipment like mowers and stuff like that. And we could not get my son's stuff into that or my stuff into it. So that's why we did it. And we don't really have a lot of other room on the property. If you look at the property, there's a big barn in the back, which is a pole barn, which things go on. But you got to drive through the gate to go back there and put it. And even when you put it back there with no enclosure, everything still gets completely dirty. I mean, within a week, it's like.
I used to live out there, so I'm familiar
Yes,
with
sir,
it.
it's
yeah.
dusty.
Yeah.
And I'm right on the street, so when they come by at 60 miles an hour, I'm dusted every day. I mean, like, I keep my property really nice, neat, and clean.
Right. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Let's see, okay, none? All right, so what are we talking here? 5 feet?
Yes, sir, 5 feet.
That's what we're talking
Yes,
about?
sir.
Okay, so thank you very much. You can have a
Yes, sir.
seat. Any comment, board comments? Do we have any comments, board comments, anything? No? Okay. We're going to open it up to for the public for anyone would like to come up and comment on it.
Doing tonight. I'm Frank Core. I live across the street at 5097. And I just caught wind of this. I've only been in the neighborhood for a couple of years. But if you guys check your plot plan, and as Coy was talking about the street markers, when you drive through the community, from the edge of every road, whether it's asphalt or dirt, most of the swale culverts carry all the rainwater and everything, they sit back probably 15 to 20 feet from the edge of the road. Okay? Think about that. On both sides, I drove the whole neighborhood. For some reason on our street over the years, as our street runs east-west, it kind of angles this way, moving slightly to the south as you're coming west, okay? So I'm at the end of the street, close to
Sorry,
Coy.
yeah.
I'm one off the corner.
Head back over the microphone if you don't
Okay.
mind.
I'm at the end of the street, right across from Coy, and here's my property line, and there's the edge of the road where that wall is, okay? And it's not nothing that I don't bitch about it or anything. You can see it right here on this picture. But it's much less than most of the other homes, almost all the homes in that neighborhood, and it's only because of the people driving down into the other houses, they kind of made their own road off of what the so-called survey stakes say should be the road. So if you go out there and redo that road with one of your graders when they come by twice a week or whatever they do to grade the road, and you start straightening it out to where the stakes where the stakes are according to your plot plan, I'm going to gain probably 8-foot frontage to the road, where Coy's going to lose about 8-foot frontage, everybody on his side. Does that make sense to y'all?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so, I mean, because of that, I mean, that's why it might appear on here that he's very close to the road, but or close to his house. I don't know what the problem is with his building here. I just don't, is it because if there's a 20-foot rule in the bylaws that say that you have to be 20 feet off the road?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what they're asking you to do tonight, is to change that to 15 feet or whatever?
So that remains to be discussed up here and approved or not approved. We
Okay.
just got to wait to see what we come up with.
So what do I do? Do I have to fill out a complaint to get the county to come in and resurvey our road and straighten it out like it's made to on the plot plan? What would happen?
I would take that with staff. I would ask that question to staff.
I think I can probably quickly answer that. Let me go and pause this. There's a right-of-way, and especially in the case of a dirt road, grading, it may move within that right-of-way. And I understand what you're saying, where people kind of make their path, but so long as we're in the right-of-way and we have the drainage within the right-of-way, we're probably going to count that as a win. And so, we've got situations in the county where roadways are actually on private property, so that, what we're seeing, and based on Mr. Sadler's survey, that, we're in good shape here. The actual travel way of the road is in the right of way, so that's where we want it to be. And then just to belabor the point a little bit, our setbacks are measured from the property line, not from the roadway itself. So appreciate what Mr. Sadler had mentioned too, where he said he had gone out and measured from the road. And that's good information, but we measure from a property line for our setbacks.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
All right,
thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Please state your name and where you're from.
Jennifer Wilson. I live at 5171 Palm. I'm around the block from them. I didn't quite understand what the notice said, but being in that neighborhood, he has one of the nicest properties in the neighborhood. I'm on the corner by you guys. We haven't met yet, hi. But there were so many other things. I understand there's variances, there's codes, it all needs to be kept to a certain thing, but when people have garbage coming out of their yards into the spillway, this is, I think, more of a problem than a well-kept property. How do we balance that is what I need to know. Because they maintain their property, it's gorgeous, as I try to do as well, and I'm sure the other guy does across the street. Hi, neighbor. But we've got all of this problems going on out there with garbage literally coming out. I mean, what about that place across the street from Hidden Trails on Mahogany? The guy literally can't put a car in the driveway because of the garbage falling out of it. How does that get taken care of as opposed to people that are maintaining things is what I need to know. I just want to bring to light. The guy, let him keep his shed, please.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to come up and comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any comments and discussion first?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Adam a couple questions. Adam, so this property, this building right now is 20 feet from the front setback, correct? Is that what it is? It's 20 feet?
It's 90, oh goodness. 99?
99?
99,
99, that's what
From the front of the property?
correct.
99 feet?
Yes, sir.
99 feet?
Your survey that you're showing here shows it's 99 feet from Pine Street. The reason why that's the front setback is because your front and the rear are the largest, and so your rear is over here to the right. Everybody look at the graphic. So front, Pine Street, rear, Pine Street to the west, rear is to your right-hand side.
Are we calling, okay, yeah, there it is. It's 15 feet. Are we calling that
Yep.
Pecan Street the side yard?
Street side,
Are we calling that the side lot or the front?
street side.
But that's a side setback.
It's a
The side setback or front yard
The
setback?
20 foot is a street side, it's a street, the side is at the north. That's where your 7.5 is being measured from, is the north.
Right. Okay. But it was 7.5 feet in there when this place was originally developed, correct? The side setbacks. I remember years ago, I lived out there.
Has a lot of
and used to
record,
work
yes,
out
sir.
there. Yeah.
But not from the street, the streets have, remember the graphic I've got?
That's what your current setbacks are, but back in the day, back a long time ago, that was 7.5 feet. It was a street side, 20 feet. It was 20 feet on that,
There's a corner.
because it was street side. I mean, I understand what's happened, obviously, that it didn't make sense on the drawing for it to be on the side of the property. So they're proceeding assuming that that is the right place to put it. I think that was done in good faith. I don't think that they intended, I think, like you said, because it wouldn't have made sense for him to come in and turn the corner and go back up, and he has a wooden deck there anyway. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I just want to hear what everybody else has to say.
All right, do we have anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm pretty familiar with Daytona North and how the roads aren't always in the center of the right-of-way. And I realize that the shed is in the setback. It's not in the right-of-way. It's in the setback, 5 feet. I don't really see where that affects anything, affects anybody else. Doesn't affect the county doing anything with the road or the right-of-way or the drainage or anything else. I'd make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, I will entertain the motion, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, our next item is item 5. And that's also quasi-judicial requiring disclosure of ex parte communication. Does anybody have any disclosures to make on this? Having none, we're going to go with application 3363, a variance, 0.50-foot left side yard setback variance from the required 5-foot minimum side yard setback in the PUD Development District. Adam, would you please go and let us know?
Did y'all do quasi-judicial disclosures? Oh,
Yes, we
okay,
did.
I'm sorry. Here's the parcel, Lot 2, and so I've described what's going on here with this. You've got the golf course tract on the backside, Lot 3 and others that are of similar size to the north. Lot 1 and 2 being a little larger than some in this development. And I described in the staff report, maybe in too much detail, why development on this lot made sense to have the garage on the south side, because it's the long side. I think this shows it, that you'd have that driveway. And from this, you can also guess that, and I didn't go into this in the staff report, Lot 1 will have the driveway on its north side adjoining Lot 2. It should have the garage similarly oriented closest to that interior, because we're getting close to that intersection, so that you're going to have driveway and extra driveway should be the result here. So maybe good foreshadowing, garage next to garage. You'll have those utility areas, those air conditioning likely abutting each other here because it makes sense. And so the orientation on this one, because of the long side on the lot being on the south side, pushed the garage to the south, where the driveway just seemed to really push towards it, making sense there. Mixed use low is our future land use, our PUD zoning for this and the surrounding area. Zone X, so not a special flood hazard area for us. And then the mix of soils, fine sands again, and that would also then show us that there are no wetlands on the property. And from the plat itself, in turn of the orientation here a little bit, but just to make it match roughly what we were looking at on that property appraiser aerial, you have that 50 feet more or less at the back on a bit of a diagonal line. And then you have that long side on the south, on the left-hand side, shorter side on the north or the right-hand side. And then here's what we saw then with the submittal that came to us, showed 5-foot side setbacks on both sides. This was the intended plan. And then this was the foundation survey that came in and showed that the entire structure had shifted to the south by 1/2 foot. And so we have that 4.5 then and 5.5, 4.5 on the left to the south, and then 5.5 to the north. The hardship that's here is then related to the foundation, having to tear that up and redo that. I've included these graphics and did talk about these within the narrative that these were from. I think one of them is a floor plan on the left, the other one's a foundation plan. These are both, what I wanted to show you here was on the left-hand side of each of these drawings show then the mechanical portion. The pool equipment has not yet been constructed. That pool slab and surrounding area there with that is not yet in place, but you do have the slab poured for the equipment. We saw that on the drawing. Luckily, no encroachment across the line. I do understand in this development that this is the norm, that those equipment slabs can go directly all the way to the property line. And so one of the questions I had asked internally to staff is that we have on the plot plan, we showed the flow arrows for drainage along that side lot line, that concrete slab being in place. Are we impeding drainage? What we'll look for then with this is some guttering that'll happen that'll direct the water off of the roof towards the rear of the home, and so the slab should not be an impediment there for that. So size of the property a little larger than some at 6,943 square feet. Lot width at 50 feet, which is fairly standard also here. And the dwelling width at 40 feet really kept it where there was no margin for error, and not sure how the error happened. The contractor, I think, described that the pins were set, the foundation came in, was poured, and everyone's expectation was that it was going to be in the right place, and it ended up not being there. And so it's not hard to place blame. It is hard to place blame here because we don't know collectively exactly how it happened, but it did shift over. Once the contractor realized that it happened with the as-built coming in, they applied for the variance. They haven't had an approved inspection since March, so that we're here looking for the variance as that first option that should come with any of this when it's discovered. This is the first step we should go in. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments from the board, submit my staff report for the record. Contractors present for any questions or comments or anything I've left out. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. So before we go to the applicant again, do we have any discussions or any questions for staff on this? None? All right, is the applicant here and would like to step up and comment or present? Please say your name and where you're from.
Good evening, folks. I appreciate it. I'm John Castanera. I'm the builder. This is Grayson Merriweather. He's my project manager. So basically, we started the project. We did everything, as supposed to be done. We got the house pins by the surveyor. The slab guy came in, formed the slab based on the house pins for where the survey was placed. Dimensionally, everything lined up. We didn't have any issues. So we continue with the pour. We've had all the inspections done. We actually got the slab done, and we actually went vertical too. We got the block done as well. There was no issues with the block either dimensionally. So there was nothing that led us to believe that something was wrong. And then obviously, we have to order the foundation survey as part of the process of building to turn into the county before you could pour any lintels and continue on. That's when we realized the hardship of 4.5 feet. We immediately stopped construction on it. It hasn't moved since. And that's basically, other than the house pins, I got to assume we're just put in the wrong place. We've spoken to the surveyor about it. He's not sure what happened. I think they're all based on GPS location coordinates, I think, when they place those things. So he is not 100% sure, so we told him we'd apply for the variance, and that's why we're here now. So that's the issue.
All right. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Mark Langello?
How you doing? I'm a GC too, so I feel for you here. Is that house on a monolithic or a stem
It's
wall?
monolithic.
Monolithic. And did you pour your concrete lintels yet?
No.
It looked like in the picture
Yeah,
they
we
weren't
can't
poured.
move forward. 'Cause you need the foundation survey approved.
Right, it looked
through
like
the
you
county.
didn't pour them. Did you already order trusses and everything too?
They're actually just got delivered.
They got delivered?
Yes, sir.
All right, I mean, because, you wouldn't have to rip the whole slab up, but it would be a big job. You could cut that edge of the slab and re-put a footing and all that down, but you have, then you don't mess with your plumbing, but you have blocks up that would have to be, taken care of to a degree, and then you have trusses that are now they're no good because they're not bearing correctly and engineered correctly. And the surveyor does not know what happened.
Sir.
Adam, you, in your staff report, you were bringing up the whole thing with the air conditioning. So is there a resolution to that problem? Because are we setting him up for the next issue, which is the air conditioning pad being a problem? And
That's why I wanted to dive into it quite a bit. But what I understand also from what I'm being told by our staff is that, and you saw it won't be an issue having the wall constructed to the east or to the west, but the wall to the south adjoining Lot 1 will be the problem. And so the screening that I understand, I've been told that the HOA does not require the screening then on that side, that they would require it more from the street. But I'm raising it as a potential issue. I've also been told that with that zero setback then with the equipment pad, that what would be needed then on Lot 1, you can imagine they'll just have an offset so that you can still get around it. But to maintain it, you're going to have to go on somebody else's property to be able to do that maintenance. And I will say this out loud, and I know that just to make sure I'm being real clear, there is a door in between both. There's 2 units that are on this concrete slab, so that really these folks don't have to do it. But if you have something maintaining the slab or maintaining the walls, you'll at least need to go on lot
Right.
1, but you won't have as much of an issue here because they've designed it with the door in between, and they've got a unit to the west and a unit to the east.
but you got to go on the neighbor's property, get into that access.
No, you can actually access these units that are shown here on that slab through the garage. So that exterior door that's
That
showing
door.
is right between the 2 units.
I think it shows it on the floor plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that in the future, there'd probably be a pool in the backyard.
It was initially designed to have a pool. That's why the pool equipment was back there, but
Right.
the owner deleted.
Right, but
The pool at this
that will
time.
happen down the road, and then they'll be right back here. So,
Well, and I guess you can make that,
I
it
see
doesn't
it, Adam.
necessarily have to go to the line, I guess. I don't think the pool equipment is as big per se as the AC equipment, so that I think they could obviously make, I mean, you could probably do away with a 3-foot on the pool equipment down the road.
Also, I've built quite a few.
Can you state your name, sir?
Oh, sorry, Grayson Merriweather. I've built quite a few as well in that neighborhood, not Cinnamon Beach specifically, but in Hammock Beach community. And 99% of the houses we build, the slabs for AC units go all the way to the property line. So it's not abnormal for that
Right.
to be there.
Right, so even at 5 foot, if it was normally, the AC wall would still be at the property line, the edge of the property line, therefore still having to go on the neighbor's property.
Or if they build a fence, you'd have to go from each end of the house to it.
Correct, to the AC pad, you die right into the AC pad, correct?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if they allow fences in Cinnamon Beach.
Any other questions?
I believe in there, now AC maintenance wise, I think you're gonna be fine, obviously, with the door. I believe in there that the landscape and maintenance is all done by one company. It's part of the association, if I'm not mistaken. So in regards to having, landscapers, go on someone else's property to maintain theirs, vice versa, I don't think we're gonna run into any problems. I believe. I was gonna actually double check before I said that, but I believe that's the case.
All right, thank you. Anybody else, any other questions? Thank you. You got
Thank you,
it?
folks, I
you.
appreciate it.
So at this time, we'll open it up for public comments on this application, if there's anyone that would like to come up. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
These, after the fact, variances are obviously tough, but, I don't see an issue with moving forward with, a motion to approve the application for the half-foot setback.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second. So we'll take it to a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would just like to add that I think that that lot, just the shape of the lot, and it's not a parallelogram, whatever makes the lot unique for for issue number 1 on our variance.
And that side of the lot doesn't have, is not a buildable lot adjoining it. Right?
No, it is a buildable
No,
lot.
that's buildable lot.
Oh, is it?
Lot 1.
It's not built
Oh, I
yet.
got you, okay.
We'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 6, and that is also a quasi-judicial requirement, this disclosure for ex parte communication. Does anybody on this board have to disclose any communications? Okay, so the application is number 3369. Variance, 7-foot rear yard setback, variance from the required 20-foot minimum rear yard setback in the RC Residential Commercial District. Adam, please
Yes, sir.
honor us.
We've got the parcel shown in blue here on the aerial, and what we have is and you'll see it in greater detail on both the plan and in the photos. I think the photos are telling. But the area that's happening for the encroachment on this is that northeast corner of the home. And so I know you can't see it very well here, but you can see the roof line that's present. Hopefully you can see a portion of it. Let me see if I can get my mouse, or my cursor here. This roof line parallels the front and rear lot line. And then you have this portion that jumps out, and that's where the setback, it's this part that's the encroaching part of the home because of how the line on the rear of the lot is not a rectangle, and so the home is placed square east-west as we're showing here, that it's not placed parallel to the front or rear lines, so it creates a spot at that northeast corner where you're having the encroachment occurring to the rear setback. So future land use showing mixed-use low intensity, residential limited commercial zoning in place. This is within a special flood hazard area, Zone VE, and this is a recently constructed home within that VE zoning. VE zone, and then your beach gravelly sand that's here that would be consistent with what we expect at the beach, and then the wetlands not showing any specific on this property, but showing the ocean here in its proximity to the ocean. And so here's that plan that was submitted with the submittal, and that's showing that angle that was needed in order to meet the rear setback minimum requirement. And this had been the subject of a previous variance request that would have squared up that back line and would have had occupied space present on, I think, on all 3 floors. Correction, it was for a cantilevered second and third floor occupied with heated and cooled space. That previous variance was denied by the planning board. And so then, because of that denial, the previous owner had come in and just put in porches, and they're open decks, correction, not a porch, not a roof, open decks, cantilevered. And what the issue is now that's happening is those cantilevered decks are pulling away from the home. So present owners come in, bought it, shows that there's a problem, is seeking the variance then to allow for vertical supports on the deck. So you'd replace the decks and you'd have vertical supports. The need for the variance is because of that vertical support. That's structural support that runs from the ground upwards then and would necessitate the variance because it's part of the structure. Cantilever didn't have a problem. The vertical support would require the variance. So here's the applicant's photos they submitted showing the cantilever, the existing, and the point here, the place to note this. This is down on that southeast corner, and here we don't have the problem with the setback. So that's the reason why you have the vertical support there, the column that meets the requirement, because you can see the roof line here coming in at the angle, and this is that portion we're talking about that's the problem. And so that's why the 7 foot is the request, because it's just that portion, just that angled portion that's the issue here with the request. Here's those details. This is at the bottom of that porch looking up. Again, bottom of the deck looking up, and you can see then how it's pulling away. I think this is from the north side of the home. Again, below that, looking upwards, and then here's that detail of what you're seeing as far as that distance, that amount of separation that's happening now with those decks. So Lot 11, Block 2 of Kanaha Beach, mentioned the land use, single-family dwelling, and then purpose of this request is the vertical supports. We had the variance that was denied before, but it was a different request. It was for cantilevered, heated and cooled living space in the area where now you have the cantilevered decks. Their concern safety. This is a before-the-fact variance prompted by the safety concern from the current owner, and so they haven't done any work there, but they're limited in their use of the decks because of what they feel is the safety concern. They provided in their narrative some mention, I guess I'll mention just for the record, but about the erosion that they had as part of the storm. If you want to consider that, I think that that may play in. I think they were citing that they were under an emergency order, or that emergency order pertains to sand replacement and seawall construction. And so I didn't really say much about it, but it is part of the narrative. Maybe that will play in with some of the unique circumstances that are here, but I looked at it as really just the nature of the decks then pulling away as being the concern that's really related to the variance request. Presented the three options here for you: approval, denial, or continuance, and your approval will be a finding that the 7-foot left rear or east setback variance with minimum 20-foot rear yard setback variance is appropriate. The conditions have been met. The denial would be that the conditions have not been met, criteria have not been met, and the 7-foot left rear setback variance from the minimum 20-foot rear yard setback in the RC district is then denied. And then the continuance would be for staff or for the applicant to come back with more information for the board. With that, I'll submit my staff report for the record and presentation I've just made. Any questions or comments, I'm open for those. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Adam. Does anybody have a question for Adam, for the staff? Do we have the applicant here? Please state your name and where you're from.
Hello, I'm Joe Murphy. My wife Mary can't make it tonight. 3303 North Ocean Shore Boulevard. The occupancy permit was granted for this home in January of 2019. We purchased the house in March of 2019, and 2 years later, painters discovered the porches pulling away from the house. And we contacted 3 different contractors to see if they could repair it, and they all told me the same thing: we need to have a structural engineer. And when we did that, they told us that, this has to come down. It's not sound, and you need to get the columns and engineered pylons in the ground and build to take the weight off the house. And I'd also like to mention, as they're pulling away from the house, we're getting water damage on our ceilings. And I'd like to remedy the mistakes of the former owner. The builder that built the house went bankrupt before it was finished, and they took all kinds of shortcuts, and this is one of them. We're just trying to remedy the mistakes made by the prior owner. And then as far as the earlier denial of the variance, 2 of my neighbors were against it, and those 2 neighbors now support me. And my 2 neighbors to the north and my 2 neighbors to the south, I consulted them. I showed them my porch before I applied for the variance, and they support my They told me, get going on it, so. And on top of that, we are under the emergency order, and we are constructing a seawall behind our home. And it's all part of the narrative. We got more than we bargained for when we bought this house.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Do you have any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any discussion on this? Okay, so we'll bring it out to the public. Does anybody have any comments on this? Come right up, sir. Please mention your name and where you're from.
I'm Tom Tant. I live at 3311 North Ocean Shore Boulevard, and we are supporters of Joe and Marianne Murphy for this 7-foot variance. We have been living there since 1988. We were the first house ever to be built there. And we have noticed that the construction on this house has been difficult, to say the least, because it was held open for months and months. And you know what that can do to a home on the ocean front. And Joe now is facing a hurricane season, and we need to support him. And I also talked to the owner of the house north of him directly, Stan Travanese, and I really can't speak for him, but I agree with Joe that he has agreed that this variance is needed for the support of that house and support of that porch. So we have no qualm with that 7-foot variance, and we just wanted the board to know that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir, very much. Do we have anybody else who would like to comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Do you have any comments or?
Mr. Chairman, Adam, those lots, they're rectangle shape, they're parallelograms. There are other ones that are parallelogram, but say on that picture right there, one of the unique things about these lots are you can see by the lot north of it, which is Mr. Tant's lot, that the property line goes all the way out into the water. These lots were chopped up and they lost that property, but it was their backyard. So if they were like Mr. Tant, this wouldn't even be an issue. So this is more of a unique situation to these lots there. And with that, I also, this is not going to, there's nobody in the backyard but, the dolphins and the turtles. And he's already got a paved backyard there, so I would be in favor of the variance.
Anybody else?
Is that a motion?
If no one else wants to make any comments, I'll make a motion to approve variance as stated.
I'll second it, yep.
All righty, so we have a motion and a second. We'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. So we're moving on to item number 7. And this is a legislative not requiring disclosure of ex parte communication. This is application 3361, future land use map amendment from agriculture and timberland to industrial. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, so I did have a brief conversation with Adam, and I just want to put it on the record. I'll talk to Mr. Moreland about this, but I own the property directly east of this property. They're similar in size. My property is an industrial property. This here is turning into industrial zoning. I feel that I have no conflict of interest. I have no special gain in any monetary issues with this property. I'm not doing anything with them. But I did want to get it on the record. And Mr. Moreland, would you please confirm or deny that that's the appropriate thing to do?
Mr. Langella, you're correct. Just by owning adjacent property, that does not rise to the level of a conflict of interest that's recognized by the Commission on Ethics. It's too remote and speculative. A conflict of interest would require a special private financial gain to yourself. So you're okay to vote on this.
Thank you very much.
I'm curious to know if your property was previously zoned agriculture and timberland.
Mine was actually recreational.
Oh, and then rezoned to
And
industrial.
but mine is in the city of Benel, and it was recreational. It was a golf driving range. And then I had changed, and then it also had the motocross and all that, and I had changed it from recreational to industrial in the city of Benel.
Thank you.
All right. So, is the applicant here? Would you like to come up and,
Well, we haven't heard staff.
oh,
I
I'm sorry.
interrupted you.
Oh, wait.
I skipped you.
Darn, Mr. Chairman.
This looks like a
The subject parcel is shown here. It's off of Sawgrass Road and just north of our fairgrounds. And it's currently in use, horse boarding, stables. We've got some industrial uses. Should have probably pulled this back just a little bit, but to the north, on the north side of Sawgrass Road, and then also arguably to the west from here. This is accessible from County Road 13, and Sawgrass Road here is a paved road that runs up and then terminates basically at that other concrete operation that's there. The railroad tracks are along the east side of the subject parcel. This is our future land use that we have, and that purple at the very top showing the other industrial land use areas, that we have in the vicinity, are light green showing our agriculture and timberlands, currently the designation here, the dark green showing that area designated as conservation. And so those generally corresponding to wetlands that have been identified previously, none of those conservation areas on the subject property. Our zoning that you see, industrial for those two parcels to the north, matching the future land use designation, agriculture AC for those parcels then that are around the area with the agriculture and timberlands future land use. And then our flood zone matching up closely with what we had seen on the conservation side, but you can see the blue areas being Zone A, a special flood hazard area, this area not being within a special flood hazard area, this is Zone X. And then our soils that we have, and a mix of soils here, but back to your fine sands, predominantly you do have a water area there designated with 99, but mostly your fine sands that are present on the property. And just what we would expect, because those fine sands, just a small portion of wetlands there in that part that's abutting the fairgrounds at the south. Otherwise, water bodies that are present both on the fairgrounds parcel and on the subject parcel. I had these tables that I have started submitting, or had been submitting now for a few years, that are intended to summarize the mix that's there. And with this one, we have the decrease in population. You have an increase in potential area based on the floor area ratios that are adopted in our comprehensive plan. And so then our transportation impacts, and using the transportation study that was submitted with this, having the office mix and the proposed concrete block plant as part of the study, that they had come back with 412 trips, so an increase of 367 trips that would happen over the limited residential development that would occur. Potable water may be a little harder to estimate. I've went and kind of tried to dig up some of that, but concrete block manufacturing being dependent on a water source, I understand that also requiring potable water. Potable water here in this case would be well, and their sanitary sewer would be provided by septic tank, so not by connection to central utilities for either of those, but showing here that generally a decrease of 114 gallons per day, but certainly that's going to vary significantly based on the source of water used for the actual production of the concrete blocks. And then sanitary sewer having similar drop in demand because it's linked to the water. Solid waste, as you'd expect, industrial would have a higher generator. I'm trying to pull from different sources here. There's just not a lot of information there, but this is manufacturing based on a 1.42 per pound per 100 square foot per day estimate that I had tracked down off of Dr. Google. And then Parks and Recreation out there, the Parks and Recreation is tied to the 12 persons, the population. So with industrial use, there would be no demand on Parks and Recreation. And the same for educational facilities, that we had a fraction, 1.225 students before, and then no students would be associated with the industrial land use. At 25.41 acres on the parcel size intended for that concrete block use, manufacturing use. It's proximate to other similar uses, and then this is linked to the rezoning request. And so that there's some dependency here, more so on the rezoning, less on the flume. And then this is, as a legislative item, you are still expected to provide a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. But remember, with these, there really isn't any criteria that's in play for a legislative action. It can effectively be based on very limited factual basis. After I butcher this more, I'll look to Sean to clean it up, but legislative items don't have the same criteria that you have with a quasi-judicial item as far as the level of evidence and the dependency on strict requirements for them. It can be a determination that it's not appropriate, could be an appropriate recommendation that you would provide to the Board of County Commissioners, and likewise, the board, either in consideration of your recommendation or not, could make that determination that it's just not appropriate, and that's a standard that applies to a legislative land use application. With that, do have those options available for you. The finding for approval would find that the amendment itself is consistent with the Flagler County Comprehensive Plan. Denial would be based on the recommendation for denial would be based on the finding by the planning board that it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, or you could continue this to a time and date certain, giving both or staff or the applicant some homework to come back and provide additional information to the board in making their recommendation. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments. The applicant is present for presentation, also for any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the applicant, any questions to staff?
I have a couple. Adam, can you tell us what the existing uses are that surround this property?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you've got the, I think that's a concrete batch plant that's here on the north side.
And a block plant.
Okay. I couldn't remember what all we had going on. And then this is a land clearing, debris. Mark, how would you classify what's happening across, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Site
work contractor. There's also, is this the garage? There's a garage, I think that's.
I don't know what that one is
Okay,
right now.
all right. I should have, I don't know if I have a better aerial, but I think there's also a garage or some kind of vehicle operation that's there. Fairgrounds to the south. And so you do have, to give you some orientation of the fairgrounds parcel, this is the Ag Extension Office, and then this is the arena that we have. And so you've got some distance. We were concerned about that initially, but you've got some distance from the property line south to the event arena that we have.
And maybe to answer further, to the east is a conservation part of my parcel, and that's industrial. The whole thing is all industrial, but it's not shown because the city of Bunnell zoning.
Thank you.
Anybody else has any questions? Okay, so now we could take it to the applicant. Please come up, say your name and wait for it.
Good evening. For the record, Michael Woods with the law firm Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard in beautiful DeLand, here today on behalf of the applicant. I must admit it's a little odd being up here in Flagler County, not coming up with a residential project, and to have an industrial project is a nice treat to be able to come forward with a different use. Want to thank staff's support in getting us through to this far, this process. Again, a little less so with the rezoning request, but with the land use request, a lot of your criteria, a lot of your analysis, you can kind of see even from Dr. Google and the resources there, is geared towards the residential impact. And then typically that's what we look at for capacity, intensity, usage, and the like. That being said, with the application before you, we are going to the industrial use. And Adam was able to apply the maximum floor area ratio for the industrial use in his analysis. And that may, in fact, trick some of the higher, say, traffic numbers and the like. But what we also know is that with the rezoning and the size of what is being proposed, that scales down a good bit. The real question is, why are we coming in here for a land use and rezoning for this parcel? And really what it is the surrounding properties kind of lending itself to a similar use here. Obviously, with the railroad to the east, you don't necessarily want to have, you don't have any neighbors there to worry about, notwithstanding our friend on the other side of the railroad tracks. But that, having an industrial use, not dropping this down adjacent to, single-family residential. Big factor is the similar use with the concrete batching and block plant directly to the north. Good for the goose, good for the gander. That's what really led us to coming forward with this request. And then, the nature of that property on the west side of Sawgrass, every jurisdiction has one of those kind of anomalous kind of operations there. But again, with that level of intensity, we didn't think that we were going to be in contrast or conflict with the utilization there, being at the end of Sawgrass Road, kind of tucked away and isolated to not bother anybody with what we're proposing. Again, it's on 25 acres. It's high and dry. We've got a little bit of wetland area, I guess, in the southwest quadrant that will be avoided with the site plan. As part of the rezoning request, there is a conceptual site plan that has been submitted. And I think right now, the only comments we have outstanding from TRC and staff on that is just to make sure that our driveway on the north side properly aligns with the existing projects on the north side of Sawgrass. I do have Chris Ralph, our engineer with BGE Incorporated, to answer any questions you may have on the technical side of things. But otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and I appreciate the opportunity to come forward with this industrial use.
Thank you, sir. We have any questions for them?
Yes, sir. Would there be any buffer at all between your property and the fairgrounds?
Yes, sir, and I think if we get into, I don't know if it's appropriate right now to bring forward the site plan that's in the staff report for the rezoning, but you have some substantial buffering down to the southern property line and the eastern property line. This is really oriented, boy, I guess I wasn't picking up the microphone before, I'm so sorry, but this is really oriented toward the northern edge of our property with predominant usage there.
All right. Anybody else? Any more questions? Go ahead, Mr. Langdon.
Well, first thing, just sort of a funny comment. When you said high and dry, in this county, it's either flat or underwater, so.
Understood.
So in the, actually in your site plan, I think I saw it, it said future warehousing or future space. Could you talk to me about that? You show on your conceptual site plan, which, again, at this point is conceptual, so it's not a lock-in thing, but you talked about future development there. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, at this point in time, there's no solid plans for that. The main goal for that was to be able to show where we know that on day one, the layout is there for our current use, and identifying the protection of the wetlands and the stormwater management. But again, with straight zoning, relying upon the default provisions for setbacks and buffering, we're not coming through with a PD, let's say, to kind of negotiate something new or different. So I don't know if we want to speak to anything else at this time, but the intent there and the message that we got from staff was, be aware, be cognizant of what is to our southern property line. And Adam, when the site plan comes forward, does that come to planning board, or is that solely at a staff level?
Can't remember what size we're at.
This is over
I think
5 acres,
it's going to come to the planning board. Yeah, it'll come to the planning board because it's over 5.
So it's proposed as a site, as a block manufacturing and ready mix plant. And one of the narratives in there, it said that it is not associated with Argos. Is the tenant or client associated with any of the other concrete local plants?
Is Argos the ones to the north, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, no, this is a standalone, it's not.
So this is a brand-new company. Is this tenant, or is this a purchase, is this person owning the property?
As I've been told, that the A1 Block has purchased the property now.
Okay, so the owner of the property is the concrete or block plant?
That's, I think, yeah, yes.
Okay. I mean, the reason why I mention that, I think that, first of all, I think a block plant is very appropriate there. Like I said, we already have one right across the street. Competition is good for the economy. It's going to produce jobs. Actually, I don't think that plant is producing blocks, neither is the other one that CEMEX has, or now it's, I forget what they are now, but yeah, they are still CEMEX, yeah. So somebody actually coming to produce blocks would be good, and in fact, I think, for the local community, less semis coming down the highway to get here to produce blocks for our community, and people would have jobs there. So that's all a good thing. I'm a little hesitant about overdeveloping the industrial side of it for some other uses, and that's why I was asking you what you were doing with it there, you know? But if the tenant, if the owner is the one developing it, then it's gonna be a block plan.
Yes, sir.
That would be a foregone conclusion, I would assume. And then to Mr. Boyd's question, Adam, what is the buffering between county recreational and industrial, and what is the requirement? Is it, would there be, you know, a sight line type of a thing? You know, this block plant's gonna stick up in the air 30 feet or whatever, I don't know what your plant would be. I'm sure it's gonna be tall in the air, so you wouldn't eliminate all of it, but the ground clutter and the blocks and this, and the forklifts and some of that noise, is that part of the, our current zoning that would allow that, and straight zoning that, you know, that's already taken care of?
Do have an uncomplimentary buffer. We don't have a sight line restriction that I'm aware of, but there is a planting requirement within the uncomplimentary buffer that's there. And this would fall into that. I can't quote it right now. I'm looking to Gina for help. Is 30? For the uncomplimentary. Yeah, I think it's 30, and so with it greater than 30, I didn't want to get into site plan related issues with this, because realizing that we're at 30,000 foot view on the flume, and even more so on the, or maybe a little less so on the rezoning. But that in answer to your question, yes, there is an uncomplimentary buffer.
But looking at it from a 30,000 foot view,
Yes.
if you allow an industrial use next to
Understood.
a recreational, I think you need to know what.
Are we messing ourselves up?
How,
Yes.
yeah, how does that correlate? Because like you said, he's not coming in for a PUD.
Right.
So we're not negotiating those things. He's gonna come in and say, you know, the zoning says I can do this, this is what I want to do.
There is, what I recall, is a 30-foot uncomplimentary buffer that's there, and it must be landscaped.
And the landscaping would be 4 or 5 feet tall, that type of a, you know.
Be a combination of both minimum tree count, and I'm remembering probably wrongly, but 1 every 50 feet, and then also understory, and then it's to fill in with some, there's no specified
Somewhat of a
opacity.
hedge line of 4 or 5 feet.
That would be the objective,
You know,
yes, sir.
I know right when it's first planted, you don't get that, but that's the intent. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll open it to the public. If anybody wants to come up and comment on this application, this is the time to do it. Seeing none, we'll bring it back up to the board. Any discussion, further discussion?
I would probably make a motion to approve based on he does meet the criteria that, I mean, the staff analysis of the comp plan, and it does meet that. So I would make a motion to approve.
I would second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, so next item is a quasi judicial requiring disclosure of ex parte communication. And that is, does anybody have any disclosures?
No, sir.
Okay, and this is application 3362, rezoning from ACE Agricultural District to Industrial District. Adams, please take us through this one.
This is the companion application, and all the details then and graphics remain the same as previously presented. And so that this one then brings that, aligns with the industrial future land use. Not much else to say here, but you do have that existing zoning that's to the north. It also conforms with the industrial. This is dependent upon the flume, and so you'll notice if you looked in the two ordinances, this ordinance says that this one shall only become effective upon the effective date of the future land use map amendment going into effect. With that, we have the three options available for you again for your recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners approval, finding that it's consistent, rezoning request is consistent with the Flagler County Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code, subject to the development not to commence until approval of a future land use map amendment from agriculture and timberlands to industrial. Denial would be on a finding that it's either not consistent with the comprehensive plan or the land development code, or both. And the continuance would be for additional information from staff or the applicant. With that, close and wait any questions or comments. Submit my report for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So before we go again to the applicant, do we have any further questions? Any further questions? Applicant, would you like to come back again? All right, no questions for the applicant, correct? All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
Public.
Oh, public comment from anybody who would like to come and comment on this application? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board, and I will entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I see no reason to refuse it, so I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. At this time, I will ask for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And we are headed to our final, I believe, final item on this agenda, which is item number 9. This is a quasi-judicial requirement ex parte communication. Would anybody have any? No one has any? Okay. So this is application 3368, site development plan review in a PUD development district for Amberwoods at Hunter Bridge. Adams, can you do the honors?
Yes, sir. So this is the next development. We've had a few of these that have come in over the years, and so this is that next one that's coming in, and approximate location shown here. That area east of Hunters Ridge Boulevard, south of Airport Road. You can see the orientation. Here is the power line that runs generally through the center of the screen. So this is lying to the west of that power line. Ashford Lakes off further to the east beyond the power lines. And then the county line actually being off of this map just to your right-hand side or further to the east. And you can see then Mr. Lefkowitz, BADC Development, their project and their amenity area here to the south. That's for the Huntington Village project, I think is the name of that. And then, let's see. This is our future land use map. This shows the mixed-use low intensity consistent with the Hunters Ridge DRI. This is the PUD zoning that's in place. The zoning map shows the entirety of the area PUD, consistent also with the DRI designation. Zone X, not a special flood hazard area, so no consideration there for the floods. And then we do have the Pomona fine sand predominant on the property, and that should match up pretty closely. You do have that depressional area to the west. We do have this kind of falling in between those two wetland areas there. And so you'll see that here on this graphic that there are some wetland impacts proposed on the PUD site plan. You'll see those, but basically Amberwoods is in between those two wetlands. And so here's the site plan submittal with the cover sheet. And then I'll go through each of the pages that follow. This shows then that master plan, and that green area is the area of the wetlands, and showing some areas of impacts that are there that are unavoidable. And then you have the lot layout, 40 total lots that I think are part of the count. And then you can see the north arrow here, so we have Airport Road along the left side on this graphic. So entry coming in and out, sidewalk along the east side then of this cul-de-sac that runs down. And Amberwoods signage being shown on sheet C3 along with the data table that includes then also the line and curve table that was part of this. But this being the detail that we're looking for with the PUDs, we want to see those signage plans because our code calls for those to be submitted coincide with the preliminary plat. So better for us in a PUD to have that submitted as part of our PUD submittal. So this is checking the boxes for us. Utility service concept plan, also a required PUD submittal that comes in. So the PUD site plan should have that. This shows then those utility connections along with the ultimate stormwater that's being planned for this. Utilities being provided by the City of Ormond Beach through an existing interlocal agreement. But you'll see then on this graphic within your packet, both water and sewer, and in addition to that, then also the stormwater system, and that's tie into the pond at that southeast corner of the development. And then this is something new that we've asked for, and this would hopefully be something that we can use as a template, but this is intended to be the detail for the temporary sales center, so that we had the language that had become fairly standard for up to 5 of the lots being used for model home purposes. And then out of those 5, potentially 2 or 3 being used for temporary sales centers. But the part we didn't have was the specificity in a site plan process that would give us the ability to use an adjacent residential lot for something other than single-family home development. So model homes, we were okay. We were able to permit a home on a home site, on a home lot, but the parking lot was the problem. And so what we've suggested with this as part of our PUD submittals, and hopefully it's become fairly routine, maybe something we'll refine if there's additional information that you want to see on this, but this intended as a sample graphic that if a model home is developed, and the intent of the model home is to serve as a temporary sales center, then this would be how, as a template, this would look in this development, that you'd have the adjacent lot developed with a parking lot then, and that would then have some temporary time frame. That time frame then has been put in text form into the PUD agreement that accompanies this, but we wanted to have this, and hopefully this meets all the requirements that we were looking for in the previous requests that we've had that have been very specific for a PUD site plan for a temporary sales center. So that's why this is in the packet, intended to meet that requirement. And then this is the page that shows the site layout along with the topography. And so I like that this was in here. This does show that line then of the low areas that generally correspond to the wetland areas, but has our contours built in. And you can see from this mainly that the development is occurring within the areas that are presently high for the most part, that you have the road constructed along that areas of uplands wherever it's possible to do so, with that areas of wetland impact being limited here to just a couple of spots on that east side of the cul-de-sac. The table that I pulled over from the report, and this shows the minimum setbacks and the lot sizes and lot size in the living area that's here. I think previously in the application has been submitted as a minimum and then what was being provided, and so I tried to put this in as just what was being provided. I may have some tweaking still to do with the applicant on this, but I'm fairly confident that all of this is correct, but I'm always worried I'm getting something wrong. But big piece to cover here for the record is the 5-foot side setbacks that have now become fairly routine for us. That is what the market's demanding, and just to show that out here as being something that we've seen with previous developments recently. We've also seen them in older developments, but that 5-foot side setback being something that has become, generally speaking, the standard for modern development. So 14.363 acres. That would put us at, with the 40 units, 2.79 units per acre. This area specifically was identified in the DRI as a single-family residential development cluster with a low-density residential use ranging from 0 to 5 units per acre, so we're within that range. Maximum height of 35 feet. Does have the acreage at 9.73, and we realize as these things progress that acreages will generally coincide, so there's not an issue for us with that math that's there from the DRI. And then I mentioned the details that are included within the PUD site development plan. We got the options available for you, and again, you are a recommending body to the Board of County Commissioners with this, but this would be a recommendation for approval. Both PUD site development plan and PUD development agreement, a denial or continuance. And certainly there's reasons behind each of those. The factual basis for any of that would be the finding that the site development plan and PUD development agreement coincide or are consistent with the Hunters Ridge Development Order, the comprehensive plan, the Flagler County Land Development Code, and a recommendation for denial would be that the site development plan, the PUD development agreement are not consistent with those. I left that out in this situation because they basically do stand on their own, because we've done the analysis for you that shows that, this area is intended for single-family residential development, and it's within the density range that was specified. So we would lean heavily towards approval. Mr. Chairman, I'll close, await any questions or comments, and submit my report for the record. Representative of Allen Engineering is present for presentation and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Before we go to the representative, do we have any questions or comments to make to staff?
I do. Adam, we've seen quite a bit of activity out in this area, both residential and commercial, and it's coming. I mean, we got a DRI and the development is ongoing, so it's not unexpected. My question is there a level of build-out that requires attention focused on Airport Road, improvements to Airport Road? So is there ever come a point in time where the developer is required to take a look at Airport Road, or is that not part of the development plan?
We do have some monitoring to be maybe short about it, but maybe we're at the level of detail is probably not the best for me to provide there, that much of the traffic impacts are handled through the payments of basically pay-and-go mitigation fees. And so there is a transportation impact fee that's it's an equivalent fee that's paid to Volusia for development that's occurring within Hunters Ridge, and there's also a fairly substantial agreement with Florida Department of Transportation for mitigation related to transportation mitigation related to development within the DRI itself. And both of those, the payment on Volusia's county impact fees, or the equivalent fee, happens on a per permit basis. The FDOT payment is linked to milestones, but at this point, I believe it's not. It's more date related than it is related to rooftops. Previously, it had been tied to rooftops, and in Hunters Ridge, with its slow pace of development, that had not created an optimal situation for FDOT to be able to model traffic and then be able to anticipate in time the payments to coincide with the schedule of improvements. Basically what happened was DOT's project list had outpaced the developer payments for the mitigation. You can probably imagine I'm dancing around Airport Road a bit, because Airport Road is owned, this part from the county line west is owned by the HOA, the master HOA. And then from the roundabout heading westerly to the county line, it's owned by one of the CDDs. There is an ultimate design for 4-laning that's here, and when I had a question that come up before about that I don't want to, I probably did misspeak a bit, that I said that it would be responsibility of the CDD to come up with the monies to make that happen. The reality is the county, FDOT, others would look at available sources for the widening, not unlike we do presently. And so it would not, in my thinking, not be burdened completely upon the CDD and the landowners that are present, knowing that the design is, and the ultimate build-out is for a 4-lane divided roadway for Airport Road. But it is problematic for us, because we know it handles traffic from points east to west, and it's not limited to just local streets. So by having part of it being HOA, part of it being a CDD, we realize with that in the mix, they're not alone with this, and the county would, at the time that it's needed, at the time that Airport Road honestly begins to be failing, it will have to get to a point where the level of service standard decreases such that trips generated by uses surrounding this development and maybe on points further to the east and to the west, knowing that this may become a pass-through for traffic then heading between those further points, east and west, that we'll have a need to come up with something then. And at this point, we don't necessarily have that development at that level here internally to Hunter's Ridge. And the last few times I've been there, Airport Road is still sparsely traveled, but it's something that there is monitoring that's built in to the DRI, and we'll have to be a party to that along with FDOT and likely with Volusia County and potentially with Ormond Beach in order to solve this in the future as the situation warrants something more to be done.
Have there been any concrete advances in that regard? That is, coordinated efforts or conversations even between Volusia County and Flagler County and DOT?
Quick answer, they're not, those conversations aren't needed at this point, that we're still a ways off. And so that the contributions that are being made, probably need to mention that as well, that DOT's payments the payments being made to DOT are being, resulting in impact fee credits that are being issued by us for the development. So the quick answer is I can say that there's greater coordination between the developer, FDOT, and us than had happened previously, but mainly from the mechanics of the agreement and not from any other action or activity that's happening. There's no planning presently for 4-laning of Airport Road because it's not warranted.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do. I was going to wait, but I'll ask now since we already started the conversation. This DRI, they have certain vested rights. Is concurrency on this already vested on this? So, I mean, I don't say anything about schools, police, fire, anything. Is this vested? Does this have any bearing on the approval of this site plan at this point? That those issues be addressed, or is that already handled and we're not supposed to look at that?
This is a middle step, and I'll look to Sean to maybe be more clear than I'm going to be, because to me, this is a middle step. This is a development that's occurring, kind of in between those thresholds that we have for transportation. Those impacts are being handled through the FDOT agreement and that payment of the equivalent impact fee to Volusia. For education, there's an agreement between the school district and the developer for payment of an equivalent amount to what had been negotiated for the building of a school facility, and they're getting school impact fees for that payment. So the student generation here, absent an age restriction in any specific development, that's being taken care of. The concurrency is being taken care of through that agreement. Water and sewer separate, since that's being addressed through Ormond, they're having to demonstrate that at the time of each of the plat approvals, and we can't approve a final plat until and unless
fire, police,
that's in place. Fire is tied to rooftops, and we're at a point where we're just kind of in between, that we know, I think the next step is I want to say it's a snorkel truck, it's an apparatus, and it will be, yeah, I think so. I think it's 750 rooftops. There's a couple of different standards, and we switch between them, where some of them are final plats and some of them are actual constructed homes, actual COs. And so we have that alternating throughout the DO, but we're just kind of in between that right now. Law enforcement, best I know, I think it's the same explanation I give you there as well, that we're not at this development's not tripping any of those thresholds, and in fact, probably the next 2 or 3 still aren't getting us there.
This is because they were vested with a certain amount of this density, and there were payments or plans in place for these things.
That's right, and the vesting that had happened, probably more so for the development that had happened up until this point, where the existing residents south of Airport Road in those areas were vested from our most recent run of negotiations with the developer that, so there's a vesting overall of density, but if you remember, we had some things that were challenges for us. The golf course settlement agreement, where we had a golf course construction requirement. We negotiated that with actually the prior developer, but to get some relief from that, there was some payments that were anticipated to contribute to recreation amenities. Rather than having that as a per unit assessment on each permit, that was just taken care of through a lump sum payment to the county. That's a quick example I can think of. The short answer is that at this point, this is meeting its concurrency obligation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We have the applicant or the representative here who would like to comment on this. Can you please give us your name for the record? Thank you.
Yep. My name is Cole Buck. I'm with Allen Engineering in Ormond Beach, representing the owner as well. I just want to reiterate what Adam said. It's a small 40-lot subdivision. We're permitting through Ormond Beach, Flagler County. We've coordinated with FDOT as well on traffic analysis. It's a multi-layered permitting process for this project, and right now I'm just here to help answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for him? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Do we have any discussions before we put it out to the public? All right, at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Does anybody like to come up? Please say your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Susan Garrison. I live at 40 Heron Wing Drive, which is the southern part, and airport being the north. Thank you so much for listening to our concerns. We are a 55-plus community. We're called Huntington Village, and we are part of the Master Association of Hunters Ridge. I'd like to briefly present questions and concerns that came from the residents when we received your letter. The first thing we would like to do is to know if there has been a wildlife impact survey of that area, as well as an environmental survey. While the original platting was done 27 years ago, you are well aware that all of the water plans and animal plans, such as they are in that area, have shifted significantly. We know that only the northeast corner was labeled originally as may be available for development because one of our neighbors' ex-husbands did that planting. The designation was given years ago, and conservation buffers, as they are planned now through the St. John's Water Management District, provide for our homes, and I don't even see them up there. There's Heron Wing, and that backs, this loopy thing backs right on the back of Susan's house, and Sherm, that's yours right next door. So we don't even see the St. John's Water Management buffers here, although the signs are in our backyards. What are the buffers for the power line? Does it back straightways up against the power line? Is the top of that loop, is that the power line? I would think that Florida Power and Light would expect a buffer, certainly the person that lives in that house would. We do believe that there is a home over there for gopher tortoises and other threatened wildlife. One of our neighbors, Tammy and Merrick, have a nest behind their house of turtle eggs. So we really think that Florida Fish and Wildlife should be brought into this discussion, and that the developer be expected to take under the mitigation necessary to protect the species. Has that been done? Is it current? We would consider that you would request that, because this property is not what it was when this was first platted, plotted, and permitted. Secondly, the community safety services are important. I appreciate that someone brought that up for us. We are served by the fire and police, by Volusia predominantly. Flagler's wonderful police services do come and say hello to us, introduce themselves, and they will respond, but it takes them about 35 to 40 minutes. We think we are a great distance from services, and actually the plot that you showed, which ends in 140, that big long parcel number, that was originally designated to be a public services site, probably a substation. And now I see that houses are planning to be built on there. The new neighborhood developed just north of Airport Road, directly across from this development, is going to be demanding of those services. I'm well assured that there's more than 40 houses in there. May I continue? Oh, there we go, thank you. I do represent all those people. It was originally designated as a public services area. What happened to that designation? Currently, there's only a few Hunters Ridge children who live in Flagler, and they are, by reciprocity and sharing, paid so they can go to Volusia County schools. There's, I think, 6 kids, maybe 8. There's going to be way more than 6 or 8 children in the development north of Airport Road, and if you put in another 40 houses, suddenly, within about 2 or 3 years, you're going to have hundreds of children. And to my knowledge, no ground has been broken, and the last that I had heard, the school board had not even allocated bonding or anything for that school. It is 15 miles to the nearest elementary school and the secondary schools to be served in Flagler schools. Finally, as the marshes are being drained and contained for these developments, the impact on our road is significant. I loved your description of the conundrum that you are in figuring out how to do something with Airport Road. We as residents have a hard time getting it taken care of at all because it's the other guy's fault. You are familiar with that. It's come to the point where the pavers around our beautiful ornamental fountain are already lifting up, turning sideways, and being smushed down. It was built for beauty, not use. Driving on Airport Road is hazardous, and I'll say that again, hazardous. There are not even any lane lines on the Flagler section of Airport Road. There are on the Volusia side, but it stops right there. So one morning I was driving around there, and there were 19 trucks of fill dirt waiting along that road. And there come the mamas with the babies and the old timers on the bicycles, and coming the other way is those people who cut across Airport Road to go to the beach. They go to Route 1 and go south. It is a cut through. It's not going to become one. It is one, as people avoid 40. We have had to suffer through night and day pumping and the sound of construction. The pumping alone on that north construction was abysmal. Twice it sounded like the thing was going to blow up. And nobody could come down because, of course, it's pitch black and our police services are 20 miles away. But we need to do something about the noise that the construction will generate. If it has to run day and night, could they buffer that? Could hours be set so that we have some kind of quiet time in our homes? And while construction is underway, can that road be repaired? Who's going to repair it? And if you have to build these things, could you bring the construction traffic in from the Route 40 west side of Airport Road instead of down Timber Creek and over Airport through all the homes and the schools and the walking area? Incidentally, Timber Creek is also a 2-lane road. I know I've tried to put a lot in a short period of time here, and I will be glad to answer questions. Could you put up the plat again of the homes, the one that shows? Is that Heron Wing down there? And,
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yep.
Mr. Rose, would you tell them where you live, Sherm? The second, that's Sherm's house. So you see no green back there, right, Sherm? Okay, and these are my neighbors. There's only 12 houses there, and we have 10 people, so I'm very proud of them for coming this evening. Thank you for your time. Would you like to ask any questions? And I would be delighted to fill you in more fully if I could. I'm not one of those people that know how to build houses. I just know how to live in them.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm okay?
Yes, you're okay, thank you. Yeah. So we'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I might want to add one thing if I could, and I know good job first. Second, you've left there's a lot of things to comment on there, but in answer to your last comment, that area, the green's actually wetlands, and so this area right here, this is the lot line that's proposed. And so, good or bad, the development doesn't have a common lot line with your lot lines. And the good part is, gentlemen, I think that's right here, this is not a developed area. The caption, you can't read it real well because it's in the packet, but it refers to it as common conservation area, and it's over 5 acres. It's 5 acres and change. And so while this part is wetland, this part is undeveloped upland that's here. And so if there's a positive here, I'll offer that up. I'm not offering that as I'm not a representative of the developer. I'm just wanting to read that to y'all, that, this little bit of white that's here is not the green dots. It's not the wetlands that's there. It's upland area. It's there, that's set aside. Nothing's happening in that.
Anybody else want to come up and comment?
My name is Royal Burris, and I live at that second lot.
Sir, if you could just slide over, use the microphone.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
this microphone. I was over there. My name is Royal Burris. I live at 25 Heron Wing Drive. I've been there for over 5 years. I saw this whole development start, the development on the north side of Airport Road. I saw the completion of Airport Road out to Route 40. And for Adam to say that that's not a thoroughfare, it is, I'm on that road every day. I travel that road every day. And it is a thoroughfare, and it's a hot rod thoroughfare. I mean, if you go down that road and see the tire tracks on that road, they use it as a drag strip. I mean, it's plus the heavy equipment. Tractor trailers are crossing that road from 40 over to Route 1 now. So it is a thoroughfare. There's no lines, there's nothing. As far as fire protection and police protection, I'm a retired firefighter and an EMT, and we don't have any protection there. We do get service from Volusia County. I've stopped at their firehouse. I know those fellows, and they do serve us. They will come out there. But it's not part of their district. We are Flagler County. And I see nothing in the development so far, either across the road, the one on the north side of Airport Road, or the one, Amber Woods, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is a high density. I mean, with the amount of houses going in that acreage. There's no fire protection or police protection provided there. It's catch as catch can. If Volusia County is on a call, if Foreman Beach is on a call, the next closest fire department is either out in Rima Ridge, which is Volusia County, or in Bunnell. There's nothing close by. I was a member of COPS in Flagler County. I did, the Citizens on Patrol. But I'm so far away from their office that it was like 20 minutes just to get up to get a car. So it didn't work for us down there. All I'm saying is, just please consider, before you approve this, to just look at what's actually going on down there. We need services down there in addition to, the houses. I mean, I love where I live. I think it's great. And growing up and the area getting larger is a fact. That's going to happen. But I just think that it should be considered before they go with this development to look into the infrastructure, Airport Road, fire protection, police protection. The back of my property, there is a sign right in my backyard that is St. John's Water Management area that is protected. Now, it doesn't say how wide it goes. I mean, on the map, it's a little bit of a circle, and I don't know how much buffer there is. I contacted St. John's, and they're getting back to me with how much of a buffer there is there. But our property now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but our property has been raised up probably 3 to 4 feet of fill, right where I am. In my backyard, it drops off and goes down probably 2.5 to 3 feet into this new area. That's going to create problems. Definitely going to create problems if it's filled in. But that's
Thank you.
That's about all I got to say. But I'd just like you to consider, a little bit more before this is approved.
All right, thank you. So we've had one person speak for the group, so we're going to bring it back to.
Well, they may have.
Is there anyone else that want to come up and comment? Okay, so seeing none, we'll bring it back up to.
Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the public who took the time to come out here tonight, I just wanted to say a few words. What our board is doing tonight is making a recommendation to the county commission, who has the final say. And what that final say is going to decide is a site plan. And so we're not in a position to tell the landowner, the developer, to say, you know, we need more services out here, or we need wider roadways. So in order to get this site plan approved, you're going to have to cough up, fill in the blank. The fact is that this has already been approved so many years ago, and those exactions were taken from the developer at that time. Some are yet to come when more homes get built. But this is a very technical review of a site plan. We're looking at making sure the drawing shows the right setbacks and the flow of traffic and the impacts to the land. So I just wanted you to understand, I understand your very heartfelt concerns, but I wanted you to understand what we're here to do tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Ma'am, would you come up to you want to come up to the, state your name for the record.
And
Repeat it.
you're saying this.
Repeat it into the microphone.
Maureen Janover. I live on Herring Wing Drive, and I've been sitting here all night hearing variances. What's to stop this builder to put in his site plan and oops, we got 10 feet here, 5 feet here. I mean, what's to stop them from doing that and coming here and getting a variance and getting approved?
Again, I'll leave that up to Sean.
Yeah, probably
and
the
staff.
short answer
I
is
mean, people have said, you know,
nothing.
oh, it was a mistake here, it was a mistake there.
right.
That could happen. It would likely be an individual homeowner in the future who their survey was wrong and they need to get a setback corrected. You're asking about variances. That could happen in the future, but that's why it's called a variance. It's not a normal approval. Some of the concerns you mentioned are valid for site plan. I heard concerns about environmental impacts. That's a valid concern to mention, and that can be addressed. I don't know if there's any response to that, but that's certainly a site plan related concern. As far as variances, nothing's to stop anyone from applying for a variance. It doesn't mean they.
Well, I'm just saying, what safeguards do you have in place to ensure that what they put on their site plan is what is actually there? So they don't have to approve for a variance. They don't have to come in like the guy who did the building and, oh, they stop building until they get the variance. What safeguards are in place so that the variances don't happen?
So this step is one of several, and so it's iterative. It's sometimes painful for those who haven't experienced it yet. At least we're not going through an Hunter's Ridge Development of Regional Impact Development Order process here, but this site plan, if approved, would then be followed by a preliminary plat. And so the preliminary plat would conform to this site plan in substantial part, and then that preliminary plat then would be followed by a final plat. And so that there's yet more public hearings, there's yet more notice that will be following this. The quick answer for you is that this site plan, this is that first step on this particular portion. This cluster is how we refer to the development within DRIs. Maybe that's aptly named, but within DRIs they're referred to as clusters, and that this cluster, as a residential cluster, its process would be a zoned PUD, planned unit development. The plat step is a required step. This site plan gives the specificity that then leads to the preliminary plat. And so in the progression, in the order, this is that first step that gives us specificity along with the development agreement. Then their development then must conform to this. And that development consisting first of preliminary plat. Preliminary plat gives them the ability to do horizontal improvements. They're going to go out there and create the proverbial moonscape. They put in the utilities. They set up the land with the roads, with all the infrastructure that's needed. And then once that preliminary plat and its infrastructure is in place, they'll move forward then with final platting. Final platting had been done in the background. If you all hadn't known about it, it was done before you all moved in on yours. And so that final platting is a step that takes a legal instrument, doesn't look a whole lot different than this. It will show the 40 lots. It'll have dedications on it. It'll go to our Board of County Commissioners after preliminary plats are reviewed by the Planning Board. Final plats are not. And then the Board of County Commissioners will typically approve a final plat, and then it's recorded in the public records. Once that final plat step is done, then individual permits can be issued. And those individual permits on these home sites, on these lots, must meet the dashed area that you see here are the setbacks. And so that's the area within which someone could build. And so that home then would have to be placed within that area. And to demonstrate that, each individual lot, each building permit application will submit a plot plan. And so those plot plans are reviewed against this document, against the plat. We need to make sure that it meets the setbacks, that the lot coverage is not being exceeded, that the minimum home size is being met, the height of the structures don't exceed the maximum height that's listed. And so that each of these then lead to the next step. And just as Sean had mentioned, if for whatever reason, it could happen, we hope it doesn't, but one of those homes comes in and it's not conforming to what was approved, then a variance could be possible.
Now, is this part of Hunter's Ridge or no?
This is.
It is.
And so, and I don't want to brush off the environmental comments that were made,
No,
but much of what that is, much of what that had already been baked into the development order. It had already, and I realize what you're saying, that the times have changed. And so the one part that I can offer is that as that preliminary plat step happens, when that infrastructure, when that site work's being done, that doesn't mean that we're entombing gopher tortoises, that, you know, there's things that are still out there that have to be done. So if gopher tortoise relocation's needed, that's going to be done as part of that. But as far as additional studies, aside from what's being shown here already, as far as the limits of the wetlands, there's not going to be a whole lot more specificity that's being offered at this point and at this step, because it's just honestly not needed, because it's already either been addressed through the development order that had been previously approved as part of the DRI, or it will be handled at a later step as the land development permit is issued for the horizontal infrastructure.
So there's no updating, like 20 years ago, this could have been approved, and because it was approved 20 years ago,
This DRI development order was last updated this year. I think it was
previous
in
to
February.
that, you said it was before we even moved in, or before ours was developed.
I think we've.
Okay, ma'am, we need to move on.
We've revised the development order here probably 3 times in the last 4 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sean, you actually answered a few of my things that I kind of already knew the answer to, but I did want to, and Adam, you brought up one about the environmental issues are not part of this plat consideration at this point because they have been handled, and then the future work, like you said, the gopher tortoises and whatever would handle it. I agree with Mr. Connor's questions about the road. So we've heard this before from other projects that have come before with us. The people there in the neighborhood believe that their level of service is failing. I think to your, I haven't been on your road in years. And I know I've lived in this county for 43 years now. And when I first came here, there was hardly any cars on the road. And I look now, there was 2 red lights in the whole county, 2. And now who knows how many red lights there are. So you would say, well, if I was to take that standard, I would say that the entire county is failing because look at all this traffic, right? But the roads are designed to handle more traffic than it was when we first moved here. You know, so it may have been 5% to its capacity when I was here. Maybe now it's 60%. I'm just throwing a number at you. It's not 100%. It's not there yet. But I think somebody needs to look at this. And I think this is a political question. We on this board, as Mr. Moreland so eloquently put, we're here to specifically look at a site plan. We have certain things we can do. We don't allocate money. We don't send them out to fix things. That's not what we do. But we're a recommending body, and the next body that looks at this is the county commission, who somewhat have their hands tied as well as us, but they're the same people who would listen to you as far as, where's our fire department? Where's our police department? Why isn't this road being fixed? I think those questions are best posed to the political aspect. So I'm glad you're here tonight. And again, when this comes up in front of a commission, they also have certain rules they have to follow. But they also have the ability, in my opinion, and Mr. Moreland may correct me, but to look at the roads, whether or not they do it in conjunction with approving this or not, but to spend some money, because, Adam, the idea that we have two different counties involved, there isn't a particular trip mechanism to enforce this. And as far as concurrency goes, I'm less worried about the schools, to be honest with you. I don't think that's the big issue. But the fire and police, I know we have some kind of an agreement with Volusia County, but, at what point does somebody build and add on a substation and put dry hydrants out there or do something to help increase this level of service based on the number of people? And again, the people who spend the money are the politicians, not us. We don't get paid and we don't get to spend any money. So to that degree, I think this does meet the requirements. So I think, like you said, Adam, there's really not a lot of choices in this. To arbitrarily not give them what they've already been vested in would be improper. So I would make a motion to approve.
I would second it.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there's any more discussion about the motion.
Any other more discussion today? Okay, so before I move forward, I'd like to say that, like Adam said, we appreciate, or Sean, we appreciate that you took the time to come down, and your concerns, our concerns as well. But then again, this is not the final decision. So I would tell you to keep in mind the time and the date that this will go up to the county commissioners and attend that meeting. And there you can continue to voice your concerns. But we thank you.
You kept a couple of things. We're not getting your public comment. We do need to make sure we're on the microphone here, and we have closed public comment. But it's in your letter. That's July 10th, I think, at 9:30. And so it is a day meeting. It's the only meeting we have in July. We ordinarily would try to have this at a night meeting. Let me make sure I say that too for y'all, because I like what the chair had said. Your comments are definitely, there's a record of this. You can go home and watch it on YouTube. We're going to generate minutes with this, and we'll provide those draft minutes to the board, not to say that you don't need to attend. I think y'all are on track with what you're saying, and so I don't want to deprive you all of that opportunity. The minutes will reflect what you have placed on the record, and if you want to add something to that, we also had in those letters an email. If you feel that there was something missing, put your comments in writing, please do, and send those to that email, and we'll make sure it's part of the record that the board gets.
Thank you, Adam. And again, thank you again from all of us and bringing your concerns. We have a motion.
I believe the applicant would like to come up and make comment.
He never got a rebuttal anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, you never got rebuttal. Come right up.
Cole Baucallan Engineering. I just wanted to assuage a couple concerns. We have done an environmental survey pretty recently. There were no tortoises on the site, no endangered species. So that's not a concern, and that's being permitted concurrently as we're going through this process with the county. That's going through the district, the management district. And then regarding the public safety site, this did used to be, this was slated for public safety site. However, That's been moved to I think it's what was going to be the regional park area. I think that was handled a couple months ago. And so there will still be a public safety site, an additional public safety site in the area at future build out. So yeah, I just wanted to assuage a couple of those comments. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So coming back to us, to the board, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Now we'll take some comments from staff, if any.
No
Board
comments, sir.
comments? And public comments, if anybody wants to come up for the last time and make any last comments.
Oh, outside of the application, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the application.
I'd just like to thank you all for taking the time to hear our concerns, and I was reinforced by the fact that some of you brought up our concerns before we brought up our concerns. And we'll look forward to guidance on how to proceed with the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to offer something, if you can. There's an old saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So go to the commission. Don't squeak the wrong way, but let them know that you have concerns there. And one other thing, one of the gentlemen talked about cars on that road. Just, that's a public road, so you can't stop whoever's going to drive on it. You can't make the construction people drive one direction and not other. That's not proper. But if the traffic on the road is a point where it needs to be addressed and no one's looking at it, maybe you need to get them to come out and look at it.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have,
And second.
Regarding the airport road situation, you had said it's a private road. Now, it's still owned by the HOA. And I just don't understand that. Maybe you can clarify and enlighten me on it, because, I mean, it's a through road. I don't know.
You can talk to staff when the meeting is over.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Couple things.
Good night.
So the one thing that was weird that you said was,